More now on our top story. The city of Istanbul on edge and high alert after a gunman opens fire on partygoers at a New Year's Eve celebration at a popular nightclub. At least 39 people are now dead, 70 others wounded. The terrorist still on the loose. Let's talk about this now with retired U.S. Navy Captain Chuck Nash, a Fox News military analyst. Captain Nash, always good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Greg.
But a tragic one for the folks in that nightclub. Hundreds of people jammed inside when suddenly this man opens fire. What's your reaction to what is surely a terrorist attack?
Yeah, this is absolutely nothing new. And the Turks, this is probably the fifth or sixth significant terrorist attack. There have been many more inside of Turkey. And it all has to be viewed within the context of what's going on in Syria. As you know, the Russians and the Turks just negotiated a ceasefire. There have been some sporadic fighting, but it seems to be holding in the main. So what that does is it freezes out certain groups. And one of the groups central to that negotiation was the Turks being able to have the Russians talk the Syrians into allowing Turkish troops to move down south into Syria to block the Kurds from uniting east-west. The quid pro quo on that was the Turks not getting all bleeped up and allowing the Assad regime and the Iranian militias to finish cleaning out eastern Aleppo.
With every attack, and there were many ISIS terror attacks abroad last year, we're reminded of the fight against ISIS. Does it underscore that this hasn't been working?
Well, it hasn't been, and you know, Turkey is an ally of the United States. As you pointed out earlier, it's a significant NATO member. And the Turks, the United States, the Saudis, Qatar, and Jordan have been allied in this fight. And then recently, the Turks decided that the way to get a deal cut was to deal with the Russians. So they're working for their own best interest, as all nations do. But in this case, the United States wasn't even invited to the party. They weren't part of the talks. And the talks that are going to happen in the capital of Kyrgyzstan in January, the United States is not invited there. Interestingly enough, the Iranians have insisted that the Saudis not get a seat at that table as well.
Yeah. Is the solution to all of this military or a political solution?
It's going to be a political solution driven by a military exhaustion of the forces and getting the backers of the forces to withdraw their support. In this case, what the Russians are trying to do, and the Iranians are going to be keenly interested in this, but what the Russians are trying to do is bring in those Gulf states that have been supporting the militias and the rebels, which the Syrian regime calls terrorists. So the Iranians, though, are saying, no, you are not going to bring in the Saudis because they're our arch enemy. So this is going to be very interesting, and the Iranians have a voice in this, a big voice, Greg, because they've supported up to 30,000 militia members, Shia militia, and they're the best fighters on this battlefield, bar none. So they have, everywhere the Assad regime has made progress, it was the Iranian-funded and Iranian-trained militias that had point on that, and they led the way.
And I take it that you believe among the biggest losers in all of this are the U.S.-backed militias, right?
I'm afraid to say yes, that's true. Because when the tide goes out, the folks going to be standing there naked are the militias and possibly the Kurds. Because we have been trying to back the Kurds. It's been spotty support, even though we say, oh, yeah, we're backing the Kurds. Yeah, sort of. And I think we were trying to balance that out with Iraqi interests and Turkish interests. And now it appears that all of those efforts really are going to be pushed to the side, and it's going to be Turkey, Iran, and Russia calling the shots.
The Obama administration simply too timid and reluctant?
Well, Greg, options are like that. The longer you let that hourglass stand, the more options fall away, till pretty soon you have few, and then you have none. And that hourglass has been upside down a long time. There were a lot of options we could have done early on, chose not to do it.
All right. Captain Chuck Nash. Captain, good to see you. Thanks.